We are coming back, dear viewers, with episode number 4 of the Casual GM podcast. There are two mortal GMs in the studio. I am Grandmaster Arturs Neiksans, the leading Latvian Grandmaster, and with me is Wojciech Moranda, who is almost just as good as GM I am. Welcome, Wojciech.
Hi, Arturs. Hi, everybody. Thanks for the invitation.
I thought you were gonna respond something to the pun, yeah, like almost just as good. No, of course. I mean, you're.
No, no, no. Like today, I woke up in a grumpy mood, so you can throw all the dirt
Oh,
you want against me, and it's not even gonna bother me.
I'm sorry. Okay, grumpy
No
mood.
worries.
Yeah, actually, yeah, I'm also feeling quite sleepy today, and I don't really know, Wojciech, does it really have something to do with the April's Fools today? You know, nobody has really fooled me today, and I'm not gonna even gonna try, right, to trick you or the audience. Maybe just a quick question. What was the worst April's Fools you have ever got?
Uh, I'm not so sure to be honest. Although this custom obviously, functions in my home country, it's not that there are some people who do not even bother doing anything like this. Like when it goes for like chess related topics, I obviously always watch out for some pranks and hoaxes, on the chessbase.com website or also its German, speaking site. So they always do a prank or stuff, and they are getting more and more creative. I need to tell you, sometimes they do things that are like really, really absurd, but turn out to be true. So they also do it like the other way around, like a reverse prank. Yeah, and yeah, they've been very creative at that. Otherwise, I cannot really remember falling to any kind of hoax like this in the past, since you kind of get, like pre-programmed. You kind of like you're like really vigilant, on April's Fools usually, since it's the day, right?
Yeah, it's like let's discuss secret war plans on Signal. Yeah, I mean, that would be really bad. Imagine such a joke, right? And then it turns out to be true. All right, okay, let's.
Exactly. As long as they do not materialize immediately afterwards, so that's a different story. Yeah, I mean
Yeah,
the guy who got invited to that Signal conversation must have felt a little bit like pranked, like, and I think this was his impression, by the way. But okay, it's like a completely different non-chess related topic, so like let's maybe drop that.
yeah. Let's drop that. I just couldn't refrain. You know, today is April's Fools and everything, and probably the folks who are gonna watch it on YouTube, it's gonna be uploaded at some point later. Okay, so what we have in store for today, Wojciech, there's two major topics I would like to talk about. But first, let's mention honorable mentions, what has happened before. And I think that we are, Wojciech, living in really privileged age for the drama kings and queens because every single week something exciting happens. So honorably mentioned maybe is going to be the young American talent Andy Woodward beating Daniel Narodetsky in a blitz match. Nobody would even hear about this match. Of course, people know Danya, and Andy Woodward is one of the most talented kids in USA, and definitely he's going to be a super GM. But why this attracted the attention for people is that Woodward beat Danya 15-0. And Danya is supposed to be one of the best players on chess.com on short-term time controls. What's your hot take on it?
Well, 15-0 is something, especially against a player of Danya's caliber. I may have mentioned this before, but online, whenever I get to play against Danya, I'm his usual client. So, he usually beats me to the ground. So if I manage to snatch a win from him, that's a reason for me to celebrate. So anyone beating Danya 15-0 has to be like a monster, that's for sure. On the other hand, if you had a look at his games, and I think that it was Levy, that is Gotham Chess, who made a very nice video about it. You'd have known that, well, many of those mistakes were just like big blunders. Maybe, like his heart wasn't into it. It wasn't his day, right? Missing some queen captures, literally one move. That is not the Danya whom we know. And I'm pretty sure that if a rematch ever happens, like the score might just as well turn around. Maybe not 0-15, but like Danya in best shape is simply unstoppable. So yeah, I wouldn't really be I wouldn't be beating the drums on this one. I wouldn't be like saying, "Oh no, like there must be some cheating involved." There are days where on which we are simply not ourselves, and I treat it like as such an instance for Danya. And as far as I know, it wasn't Danya who would be raising such accusations anyhow. Obviously not, and also again, Andy Woodward is already like this name is a brand essentially, right? So like this kid has like a bright future ahead
He's
of
the
him.
Puzzle Rush new champion, actually. He beat Ray Robson in the very recent Puzzle Rush championship. Ray Robson was winning the Chess.com's one of the most respectable events for like 5 years ago, maybe 6 years ago. I think it was 5 years ago, and the Woodward defeated him. So
Well,
he is what, 40,
I've
15?
I've never treated Puzzle Rush as a denominator of your objective playing strength. Obviously, it's like really impressive and also easy to understand for, like the general chess populace that, you score 60, so you're a beast, let's say, right? You score 40, 45, you're a very decent player. On the other hand, well, nobody denies that he's already super strong at a very young age, and I can imagine him, going to 2700 and beyond with proper coaching and a lot of hard work of his own. Yeah.
I did look at his games. Of course, I was also watching Levy's video. I wanted to check it. When did he release it? A couple of days ago. And then I forgot to check it until the very end. And I had some free time this morning. I was looking at it again. And yeah, you're right. I couldn't recognize Danya. And especially this one game that really surprised me is the same queen trap. It just makes no sense at all. It's like he trapped the queen, like he misplayed the note, but he trapped the queen on b7, and then a couple of games later he went for exactly the same line. I mean, what does it tell you?
Well, queen takes b7, knight a5 is obviously a standard, right? But I was a little bit surprised to see that Danya kept on, like repeating the same Ishibava London line all the time, and it is tricky, obviously, especially in Blitz. On the other hand, Black kept on reacting like in a rather sovereign, like decent manner. He was never in trouble, so obviously he was familiar with the line. My hunch is that Danya was already tilted by this point of time, so he just
Yeah,
kept on.
but again, drop a game exactly in the same fashion. Everything I can understand. I can perfectly understand that you get on tilt. I mean, I get on tilt. I'm a very bad handling tilt. I understand you repeat the same line because you trust your opening prep and you want to test a line. And I think very often when very good players they play online, they play against each other. They like, I trust what I'm doing. I like this setup. Let me just, play it out to the perfection. But what I do not get is, again, the queen getting trapped in the same fashion, which leads to a completely dead lost possession. Yeah, that's what I totally don't get it.
Yeah, that's a question to Danya though, but it doesn't really affect, my stance on the topic, the main topic, which we're discussing, namely possible cheating accusations, right? It just indicated maybe Danya was already like fed up with the situation, and okay, like it's online blitz, nobody's playing for any money, right?
Sure.
There's obviously no motif, like it's supposed to be fun. Obviously, there are some
You,
people who
you know,
treat.
I wouldn't be even talking about this, yeah, but there were a couple of like um, not accusations coming the next day, right? That Andy's performance was beyond of this world. Yeah, like this requires some special attention. But when you look at those games, you just see that Woodward played really nice games. He didn't do anything special, and it was Danya, yeah, who was playing terribly. And I just read a comment by ZZZ Chess that he read somewhere that Danya got an emergency call during the match and kept playing during the call. Actually, I could believe it. Like, it still doesn't really explain repeating the same blunder for the second time, but I have tried to play myself Blitz and talk on the phone. Impossible. It's impossible. I don't know about women, because women can use the same loads of the brain like at the same time, but when I'm playing and I'm talking, I cannot do the other thing. Like, I talk, I cannot concentrate. I play, I'm gonna say some generic things, but I don't hear what the person is saying.
Yeah, I read the same comment, which reminded me of this funny story that I had. So my first child was about to be born, and I was like cruising between like the hospital and home, like delivering, stuff to my wife, who was obviously almost, in labor, and then I was sitting at home, like on the one hand very anxious, on the other hand like waiting for a call from hospital. So I thought to myself, how about, like relaxing a little bit by playing some online games on chess.com? And, I logged into the server, and like the first person whom I stumble upon is like none other than Hikaru, right? So
Oh,
I actually play like four decent games, but get beaten to the ground like 4-0. And like it's not about the result, it's like about the lesson that, if you're like thinking about something else, if your mind is like in this completely different spot, maybe you should not, maybe you should cease to play, and if you care about your rating, online at all, right? But like that's a story that could potentially confirm like what you were saying, right? That it's very difficult to focus on playing if something else is happening in the meantime.
all right. Okay, let's put it aside. I mean, it happened. I wouldn't even pay attention to this because all of us we had a bad day. But those non-accusations that were coming the next day that really caught my attention. There's one more thing I would like to mention before we move on to some of the bigger topics today, and that is essentially one of the topics we talked about one of the previous podcasts. Hans Niemann against Daniil Dubov. So those of you who don't really know the history, okay, I don't really need to explain who Hans Niemann is and the controversies he's been in, but he challenged Daniil Dubov to an 18 blitz game match in Moscow, and we talked about this in one of the previous podcasts, maybe even the previous podcast, and Hans lost. He lost very narrowly by 1 point, and we're wondering what kind of question Daniil Dubov is gonna ask him in the polygraph test. So apparently, the word got out that Dubov was going to ask, "Have you ever cheated over the board in the past 5 years?" And here comes the juicy part: the polygraph never happened. And the story is this again. I can only tell you what I've read online. I'm not super well informed person. Probably know just as much as Wojciech does and everybody else does. Is that apparently Hans did not agree to the conditions because Dubov said you have to travel to Dubai. We don't really know a lot of details, and you have to take the polygraph there. And Hans said he was not okay with that he would have to cover all the expenses to travel to Dubai and for the polygraph test. And he felt disrespected by Dubov because after the end of the match, Daniil supposedly said that this was a clown show and didn't shake hands. What's your take on it, Wojciech?
Well, some people say that like this is a ploy, of Hans because well, he lost, so he should bear the consequences. But then again, he is to a certain degree, in my opinion, at least, in the right in terms of like such things needing to have been discussed, like prior to the event, because everybody like hopped on the bandwagon, when they heard like polygraph, okay, like different question, like all the hype, right? But nobody thought about the details, right? Who's gonna pay the costs of the company, who's gonna be like uh, conducting the whole kind of experiment, like or the test, right? Nobody thought about the venue, nobody thought about other accommodation, travel costs, etc. Right. So my personal opinion is that obviously, like if you lose, you're gonna have to take the polygraph test, since it's a matter of principle by this point of time. Then again, he has a point. Yeah, because depending on like the place where you live in the world, there are different kind of rules. Also in the judicial system. Like who like covers the costs, for example, within a legal kind of argument. Like if you have like proceedings and you lose the case, well, in Europe the rule of thumb is that the loser bears, like the costs, right? Whereas as far as I know, in the US it's a little bit different. Namely, everybody covers their own expenses, and this is also why it's such a bad situation to be in, for example, when you get sued by a multi-billion, company for like damages because they have like an unlimited bankroll. So you can be in the right, but like you're not gonna be able to prove it because you're gonna run out of funds. So no, essentially, in my personal opinion, those two guys are obviously gentlemen, and they should like settle this somehow, right? So Dubai sounds pricey. Obviously, on the other hand, maybe this is exactly some kind of a place somewhere in the middle between Russia and the US, right? Maybe like I'm not so sure how I would settle this myself, except for like discussing this everything like beforehand, right? So having some kind of a written agreement for sure, thinking about the details, right? I can give you like a funny anecdote very quickly. So it pertains to a completely different topic apparently, but you're gonna get my point. Namely, around 1949, like when the Soviets took over, the Rhine in my home country. Well, as they did in Latvia and other kind of countries, they started seizing all the property, like from the kulaks to collectivization. You had this Priboi, by the way, commemoration recently in Latvia, right? You know the story of deportations, of
Yeah, yeah,
ethnic
yeah, sure.
Latvians, etc. Right? So essentially, in Poland we had like similar stuff, but also they started seizing like breweries, industries, plants, all sorts of stuff. But after a while, like essentially when we regained independence, the state said, well, that was wrong. So essentially, we're gonna have to give that property back or maybe reimburse the costs to their ancestors of the people who lost that property like for nothing, for no compensation, obviously. And they issued a law. And in this law, it said, well, like this belongs to, like this property needs to be, returned. And there's going to be like a separate law of a lower order, like some kind of like a resolution or something that is going to specify the details. And 30 years had passed, and nobody is eager from the government to issue that law of lower order that would specify, the details of how it
So you're
happens.
saying Hans is gonna take a polygraph in 30 years?
No, no, no. I'm saying that if they wanted to avoid a situation like this, no matter who wins, they should have discussed this up front. Because obviously, I'm not saying that Hans is using this as a ploy or a pretext not to, kind of take the polygraph. But I can imagine that there are going to be people who are going to be saying, well, this is exactly what he's doing. Again, those are both, like men of honor, and I'm sure they're gonna settle this, between one another. So, and I hope that this is going to be settled. Otherwise, on one side of the story, there are always going to be people who are going to be accusing Hans of using this as a pretext, and on the other side of the story, there's always going to be this argument that, well, we should have discussed this before, and there's gonna be a grain of truth in like everybody's opinion without me really deciding who's in the right and who's in the wrong in this kind of
You
situation.
know?
But then yeah, sorry, you were saying.
Yeah, yeah. I would agree about the same um, thing that they should have agreed before the start of the match. And I find it really weird because, again, we talked about this in the previous podcast, so I won't really go back on it too much. That Russia apparently is very big on the polygraph. So let's not talk about are they credible or not, but they think it's credible. And I find it quite strange that it was not organized right after it, and they apparently had not agreed on the details. However, Niemann lost, right? So this means he probably has to um, cover the costs, right? I think that only makes sense. You lose the match, you're covering the costs of the polygraph test. And I'm not really sure what is wrong with Dubai because to me it feels like a neutral setting. And by the way, later Hans would write in the Twitter that he proposed a neutral setting, New York. Really, this is not a neutral setting. I mean, Hans lives in New York, right? And I could understand that Moscow is not a neutral setting. New York is not a neutral setting. Why not Dubai? I think Dubai would make perfect sense. And I find it really strange that Han said that for him to cover the. I don't again. don't quote me on this, right? But covering the costs for him, that's totally not great. But like essentially a couple of weeks ago, he offered a 100,000 match to Yanni Pomnashi, and he was willing to give this money just to play the match. So I think clearly, based on what he said before, money is not the issue, right? So you agree to the terms, you agree that you're going to take the polygraph, and now that suddenly you have to go to Dubai, he's like, no, I'm backing out. And the reasoning is that mainly I don't think it's really the money issue, it's because Bluebaum was uh, disrespecting him. We could talk about it, but to be honest, I think he has to do it, right? You agreed, you essentially gave your word, and that's why I think also the public reaction towards it was not a good one. Yeah, so it feels like he gave a word and he did not keep it, and actually, I think he missed a golden opportunity here. Wojciech, he should have taken the polygraph test, and to the question whether he ever cheated over the board, he should have said yes, and the polygraph would have said no. And then everybody would go completely crazy. We could close this chapter. I mean,
Well, a
totally,
couple of
totally
things,
crazy.
really. First of all, taking a polygraph test directly after such an exhausting match could, kind of damage could adversely influence the credibility of the polygraph test, since you are like still excited, you're still in a bit of a stress, right? So this part I can understand. Not discussing this before the event in more detail, that was certainly a mistake, because it gives rise to the kind of situation that they both landed in right now. Obviously, as a matter of principle, if you lose, you kind of need to take the test. On the other hand, like I can imagine cheaper options than Dubai being possible. Like, for example, doing stuff online that they agree, even, like theoretically, even New York as the venue, but let's say Daniel is sitting somewhere, I don't know, in Moscow and watching it live, right? Essentially, there's a company, external company hired, in New York, and like Daniel can ask the question like live, essentially this limits the cost. So it's not that Dubai is like the best and optimal, golden mean, because there are ways to make it easier, from from the perspective of costs, for the losing party. So, like I always say that whatever kind of an argument you participate in, you treat the other party with, like respect. You do not make it harder for the other party, to fulfill their obligations, because like the chess world is also like a small world, in the sense that you're going to be bumping into one another many times during tournaments, and you might want to like maintain good relationships if possible. So even if I win some kind of bet against somebody, and it's like a symbolic bet usually, right? I try to make it as easy as possible for the other party to fulfill his obligations. So this when the idea that came to my mind sounds, I think, quite reasonable. No cost and card on Daniel's side, like the possibility to watch and participate live, right? Also, like Hans going like a couple of avenues, like through New York, to this third party kind of service provider, everything happening in real time, low costs, possibility to fulfill the obligation. That's that sounds like a win-win situation to me.
All right. Okay. Whatever. I hope they're gonna settle this, and I do hope that maybe there's gonna be some sort of an apology from Dubov's side, and Hans finally is gonna take the test. But I think he signed up for it. So you have to keep your word. We'll see. We'll see. And at the moment, maybe they're still searching for this neutral setting. Is it Dubai? Is it New York? Is it London or somewhere place in Europe? We'll see. Let's move on a bit. So I don't think this issue is yet resolved. And this was a bit like negative, a bit, or like a drama from the drama's perspective. But there's one really positive news lately, and I wanted to mention this very quickly, passing by, is that when was this? Last week, Wojciech finished the European Individual Chess Championship in Romania? I think it was Romania. Yeah, I didn't really closely follow. and it was the champion of the European Championship is Matthias Bluebaum. And what makes this feat really special is that he is essentially the only player in the history in the European Championships. At least that's what I read in the article. I didn't really go to the official website to check it out. That who has won the event for a second time, because Bluebaum won the European Championship in 2022, and now it's a repeat in 2025. What do you make of that?
Well, first of all, I would like to congratulate Matthias on his great success. Obviously, it's something to win this kind of title twice, especially to be like the first person in history to ever achieve this. Naturally, the European individuals is this type of event that is so strongly packed that it can be like won just about by anybody, like ranging between 25 and 2750. On the other hand, in his case at least, it's no coincidence. He's still very young for a chess player. You know, he's been steadily improving, right? It's always, like, at least from my perspective, very difficult to play against him personally. So yeah, I mean, hopefully what follows are some invitations to super GM tournaments for him, since even for players of his caliber, it's not like self-obvious, on the current conditions. See the case of Arigaisi. And yeah, also like the podium was occupied by another German player, as far as I remember, Friedrich Swane. So like that was very close to the podium being actually completely German. That's no coincidence there. I have a little bit of insight into what has been happening chess-wise in Germany for a couple of years now, since I do coach a whole bunch of talented German players. And yeah, things have been going rather in the good direction as far as I can tell. So especially the German youth has been nicely supported by the local federation, and no wonder that you see the German team, like performing very very well at different team competitions, but also those singular successes of Bluebaum or Swane, and yeah, obviously that's good for them, yeah.
Right. I really hope that Bluebaum is also going to get more support from Germany. I still remember this pretty funny discussion about the content creation in Germany. I was talking the big Greek, who is what is his first name? Georgios, I think. Solides. I'm so sorry, I don't remember his first name. The big Greek, yeah, and
Yeah,
he's
yeah, I
one
think
of
you're
the
correct. Yeah.
yeah, he's one of the biggest content creators in the German language. And we met in Biel, where I'm doing the commentary for the past 3-4 years or so. And then I asked about what kind of videos do you make? He said about Germany, of course. I mean, German chess, yeah. And I said, oh, is it about Matthias? Because Matthias is, at the time, I think it was year 2022, he's the European champion. How many videos did you make about Matthias? He said, what, Matthias? No, no, I only make videos about Vincent Kammer. I thought, oh my goodness. No, but that was really bad. So obviously, Vincent Kammer is the rising star of a German chess and probably the future, the biggest face, and he already was rated about 2750, and definitely he is gonna. If not top 10, that he's going to be very close, but I do hope that also Matthias is going to get some extra recognition, especially after this feat.
But I think it's a classical case of, this adage that the winner takes it all, right? So Vincent is clearly superior in terms of like rating for the time being. Obviously, he's like a little bit younger, so all eyes on him. Especially in the eyes of, like in view of the win at this what was the name, Wiesenhaus Chess 960 Freestyle Championships, right? I think he won the tournament at the end of the day. So naturally, everybody is gonna be like watching him very closely. And if you're like second in kind, or like second on the rating list of Germany, you're not gonna get like half of the publicity that the best player in the given country is gonna get. The same is happening in every country, I guess. Like in Poland, we have Jan Krzysztof Duda naturally, and right behind him we've got Radosław Wojtaszek. and essentially Radek is like a living legend. But like 90% of the prime time in the media is obviously occupied by Dudant. Obviously, right? And but this is simply how the world works, I guess.
Yeah, I suppose, right, indeed. Anyway, a great achievement by Matthias. It's going to be really hard to anybody to repeat. We'll see. Let's move on a bit. And there's a couple of more topics I would like to talk about. And again, it's going to be a drama. I'm so sorry. Like I already said at the very beginning, um, every single week something happens in the chess world. And if we look back historically, like, I don't know, 10 years, 15 years, maybe back then there was no Reddit that was keeping tabs on these things, but nowadays it happens so frequently. So the drama I'm gonna talk about, which happened pretty recently, that was the ladies tournament in the Women's Grand Prix in Monaco. So if you're following what's happening in the women's chess, so in Monaco was held the Women's Grand Prix, which is part of the qualification cycle for candidates. I think it's not really so clear to me because in the open section or the men's section, there used to be the Grand Prix, and now they have eliminated it. It no longer exists. In the women's tournament, the Grand Prix still exists, and I suppose some of the best scorers of the Grand Prix they qualify for the candidates. In the candidates tournament, they select the challenger who challenges the world champion, and this is how it goes. Anyway, so they were playing in this amazing location in Monaco, and there was a drama. So what happened? The Russian grandmaster Katerina Lagno, she, I don't know if she filed an official complaint, but she was very unhappy. Apparently, she had played a very beautiful game against Elizabeth Pax, and she was not awarded the award. And instead, the award went to Alexandra Kostanyuk, her compatriot. Wojciech, your first hot take on it. What's your first thing you would like to say about this?
Okay, so this is going to be kind of controversial. But if you want to be controversial, or maybe you want to be able to express your opinion like openly, you need to do a little bit of digging, like your own due diligence. So I not only had to look at both of the games that came into consideration as candidates for the beauty prize at the tournament, but actually skimmed through all the games that were played in the
Oh, wow.
event in search of potential alternatives. And well, one thing that I can say for sure is that only those two games, in my personal opinion, came into consideration as candidates for the beauty prize. Also, the other thing, the most important thing to me is like, how do you define beauty in chess, Arturs?
How do I define beauty? I mean, probably it has something that really stands out, some crazy sacrifice. It doesn't really have to be computer supported, but it's something that stands out. A wild attack. I don't think that we could award the the award for the most beautiful game for a nice endgame technique. That would be really strange. I think mostly when we talk about some legendary games, we talk about Tal versus Hecht. Every single piece is hanging, he sacrifices the queen, and somehow it works, even if it's not sound. That's, in my opinion, that's a beautiful game.
Okay, so like for me, beauty implies a certain degree of perfection or excellence in a sense that, if a game just features sacrifices, like twists and turns, exactly, okay, it may appeal to me, but if it's like completely incorrect, I'm never gonna say that it's particularly pretty. And there are gonna be as many opinions as there are people talking about the topic, but my point is that if everybody understands beauty in chess differently, then the prize as such contests are immediately very subjective in nature.
Of course.
So, so essentially, when I compared those two games with one another, and the first encounter, which was Lano pets. You had some very nice pawn livers. You
I'm gonna
had
show you. I'm gonna show you on the screen in a moment.
uh-huh. Well,
Yeah. So
I'm just gonna say what like caught my attention. Some very nice pawn livers, like a king chase, some sacrifices, obviously, annihilation of the defense of the king, like a lot of stuff. And then the other game we had, this was Kostanjuk Tan, as far as I remember. And essentially, Kostanjuk misplayed the opening a little bit, but then Tan, blundered, and essentially a lot of pieces started hanging, like the whole board was floating. It's just that Kostanjuk was already winning by this point of time, and it was all about neutralizing that activity that Tan was trying to generate in order to flip the script, right? So if I were to choose between one game or another, personally, my vote would go definitely to Lano. Definitely to Lano, right? Then again, if somebody asked me like to award the prize based on beauty, like whether I believe, like one of the games to deserve the beauty prize in terms of like how I understand beauty, like as this kind of path towards perfection, I would probably give the watch to charity, to be honest. Yeah, since both of those pawn levers that I'm talking about that shaped, the course of the game, right, in a decisive manner, they're actually both blunders as far as I can tell, right? So
yeah.
they were pretty, they were really appealing, but if you checked the game with an engine, or even with your grandmaster I don't know, like spidey senses, essentially you would feel that there were either simpler means of achieving a win available, or maybe this was all bark and no bite, especially that G4 pawn lever, which you're probably gonna demonstrate to the
Yeah.
to the
I'm gonna
viewers
I'm
in a
gonna maybe
second.
show you in a moment. Yeah. So let
Yeah.
me just do it right now. Yeah. Can I show it?
Yeah, sure, sure, sure. But what I also wish to say is this. I've been in such situations before that, at least once that I expected receiving the beauty prize for a given game, but it was handed over to somebody else. But then again, if you even participate in contests like these, well, you need to have some sort of, as they say in my home country, like a distance to yourself, because like what is beautiful to you might actually be ugly to somebody else, right? And it's not a competition where like specific points decide. It's like somebody else's opinion which can strongly differ from yours. So from the psychological point of view, if you're upset about not getting the beauty prize, it's like very difficult to bear on a psychological level, because it's your opinion against somebody else's opinion, right? Whereas if if you participate in like competitions in which it's like there's a specific measuring system involved, and there's no room for discretion, some sort of room for other people's opinions which are decisive instead of just objective facts, all of a sudden it's better, just to cope with a situation like
All
this.
right. Let me just show you.
That
Let
would
me
be
just
my
show you these
opinion.
games. Yeah.
Hmm.
Okay. So this is the game that Lagno was playing with white, so that you see what we are talking about. So Lagno plays with white. Elizabeth Peck plays with black. So this friendly line with h6. Here, I'm not going to show you those sidelines. The game suddenly got pretty sharp because Lagno decided to cast the long side, and I think this very often sparks exciting game. So what happened here is after knight f3, knight a6, Lagno played e6, which was, she said herself, maybe objectively not the best move, but it worked just fine. And suddenly here, Pets found a very interesting way to complicate stuff. She
One
decided
thing,
not
one
to.
thing, if I may intervene very quickly, because that's one of the points that I wish to make. Yeah, like to make it's like one thing that e6 is like really pretty. It's like a straight in the face kind of a move, right? And like on a conceptual level, it's really enchanting to me. On the other hand, what I always tell my students is like simplicity is bliss. So if you can achieve something on a simpler, like simply, like a win by means of, transposing into a pawn endgame instead of, like a hurricane attack, involving all the risk, you should supposed to do it. So instead of e6, if you just hit a6, if you compromise black's queenside structure, if you follow up with like knight d4, queen a4 ideas, all of a sudden you're just winning positionally. Queen a4 also, by the way, threatens g4 in many
Right.
instances. So, well, that's, super straightforward. You do not need to blast the door open with e6 in order to obtain a relatively easy win out here, right? So as much as e6 is pretty, it's also completely unnecessary. Yeah?
I have a
It's
different opinion. Like, I totally understand your point of view that bishop a6 and queen a4 is a very clean move, and I think I would definitely look for it. Like, I'm looking how to trap the knight on h5 and queen a4. I'm targeting those pawns, but I want to support the creativity in chess, right? And I fully understand that sometimes those beautiful games, they would be impossible if one of the players did not commit the blunder. So in terms of the beauty, as you say yourself, yeah, it's pretty subjective. Yeah, to somebody, the beauty is the perfect game where you play the most logical moves. To the other, the beautiful game is where maybe because of the mistakes that were made, we suddenly got this craziness that happened over the board. Yeah, but I totally get it, your opinion. But let me just show you. Yeah, let me just show the game so that the readers can follow what happened. Here after bishop f5, suddenly the game gets really sharp. And g4, I suppose all of this was part of the calculation. And here again, Lagno missed knight e4, which apparently was a win. But again, I mean, it's a very, very complex position. And after knight e5, knight g6, king g7, don't ask me to show you any lines. Here, Pax probably also gave up on calculating. She played e3, most likely based on some gut instinct. And here, suddenly, White developed a very strong attack, and Lagno was merciless. Yeah, so after queen f5, e4, queen e4, rook f1, I'm just going to show you until then. Like, here, I felt that White has sacrificed an exchange, has a terrific attack, and because of the pin, ultimately, Pax lost the piece, and after queen d2, king b1, couple of moves later, she had to resign the game. So that is game number one.
Yeah, I mean, it's all it's all relative, I'd say, because I just learned that Lano mentioned in her post. I mean, it was somebody like her friend posting it on Facebook instead of her, since she doesn't seem to have social media. Essentially, she said that this was like her best game, that she's ever played, right? And myself, I obviously she was born like 1990 as far as I can tell. I was born in 1988, so I must have seen like 100 if not more of her games in my life.
No, but these are definitely emotions. I think
Yeah,
these
yeah,
are
yeah.
emotions.
Naturally,
Like, I
naturally.
don't think it was a objective
Yeah, yeah,
evaluation.
this is what I wanted to say. I think that I could indicate, from the top of my head, at least two games which she played in her life, which to me, were prettier than this, even better than this one. Nobody says that this is bad, but what I'm saying is that she has even more in the tank than this, and she's proven it over the course of years. So this must have been like an emotional response to a certain degree of hers, that's for sure. Whether it was a game of hers where she was winning, or maybe a game of hers when she was like on the receiving end. I don't know if you remember that game of hers against Jobava from
No, no.
2004 and this dragon line. Jobava was the guy who was brilliant in the game, but it was like just a lovely display of attacking chess. And then again, another game that I remember, like a very tiny but amusing encounter, was her game against Jakubiec from the Arafat Open in 2005. Obviously, it was not as exciting, but it was still very elegant, right? And those are like the games that came to my mind instantaneously when I heard about the whole story. So if I dug a little bit deeper, I'm pretty sure that I would have been able to find even better displays of her chess, throughout the course of the last 20 years or so.
Okay, let me just show you now the second game, and this is the winner eventually of the beauty prize. Alexandra Kosteniuk playing with white against Anjan Ki. Pronounce it correctly. So Kosteniuk plays with white. This trendy h4 line. The Grunfeld, let's maybe again not sit on the details, it's really sharp. And at some point, Tan had sacrificed a pawn to get some lead in development. Kosteniuk tried to play it a bit aggressive. And here, Kosteniuk decided to sacrifice the pawn on e5. So Again, don't ask me what's the reasoning. The point is about here. Suddenly, black was better. Yeah, so here Tanjan Key could have played rook f5, and even visually it feels that black is doing fantastic. Black is threatening to trap the white queen. Instead, Tanjan Key played rook c8, queen b5. Here, white was about to get a normal development, and here black decided to either bluff or miscalculate, and that was the move b5. You know, I think it's like a very interesting move, but the point is, it tactically simply fails because of after knight b5, queen c5, here Kosteniuk played a short castle, and after knight e3 here, white has a couple of ways to win this. Yeah, so I mean, this tactic simply doesn't work, and probably the simplest one is just to take on e3, bishop f2, and just give a fork, and that's it. Yeah, if Kosteniuk would have won this game, nobody would ever talk about like a game of beauty here, like it would be nothing special. Instead, Kosteniuk played b4, an intermezzo move. And now the point is, after knight e6, the rook on c8 is under attack with a tempi. And to make things a bit more exciting, here Tanjan Key decided to sacrifice a queen after knight x on b6, otherwise her position is completely hopeless. Kosteniuk repeat the position a couple of times, bravely play king e1. Knight f3 would be a nice, funny checkmate, but it's not a mate. And a couple of moves later, Kosteniuk simply wrapped up the game. It was pretty clean, and even though Tanjan Key was trying to set up some sort of a fortress, it was simply not there. And what maybe contributed to the award that this was the most beautiful game, Kosteniuk finished with another promotion. So queen takes on b6 and promote to a knight. To be honest, you can promote to whatever. Yeah, you can promote to the queen if you want. But this how the game finished, and here black resigned.
On the other hand, they say that the longer the game, the smaller the chances are that it's going to be picked as a brilliancy prize. You know, because like the jury typically likes some like displays of flashiness. Personally, I like the way how chess composers, the guys who create those studies, how they define beauty. Because okay, it needs to be perfect. It needs to be the only way. No doubles allowed. You know, a lot of like geometry is always in price. Essentially what is also important is that there has to be this kind of a quiet move involved along the way, like a non-obvious moment. And finally, it's supposed to be instructive. It's supposed to teach you something. So if you were to apply such rigid criteria, none of those games would have gotten the prize, right? So like the question is how much lower can we go while still talking, about beauty and how beauty is being understood by different people. Yeah. So again, like I'm just gonna emphasize my point of view once again. I think that in relative terms, the Lano game was better than the Costaniuk game. On the other hand, for me, both of them were pretty, but not to any extent that any of them would be considered like extremely beautiful, since they lacked the element of like being close to perfect, right? And especially since pets had multiple ways. There was even some counter queen sacrifice involved on dt at a certain point of time, which pets missed. So pets wasn't really putting up like the stiffest resistance possible, right? There was a lot of king chases, a lot of tactics, a lot of nice pawn levers. But if like the very essence, like based on which you are claiming the beauty prize is actually objectively speaking incorrect, to me personally, that like reduces the beauty of the given encounter. But okay, well, I think since those things are very relative, like by definition, personally, I would not be raising such concerns, but I can understand, Lana, that she was a little bit disappointed and wanted to express her opinion. I'm not so sure whether it was completely necessary to bring in politics into the spotlight, but okay, maybe
Yeah,
maybe
yeah, I'm gonna talk about it a bit. Yeah, so what happened after that? So the story is this that Lagno apparently wrote an open letter addressed to the FIDE president Arkady Dvorkovich, and she said, okay, let me just read what she said there, so that I'm not accused that I'm wrongly quoting. To my shock and disappointment, it was awarded To the game, Kastanyuk, Tanjan Key. I believe I have enough chess competence to evaluate both my game and award winner game. Yes, Alexandra played fine. It was spectacular, only in a sense that black Tanjan Key made a completely unsound sacrifice, and white had a number of winning possibilities after given move. And then she called the decision politically biased and specifically call out two out of three jury members who decided to go against the vote. To be honest, I find it a bit strange since Kastanyuk is also Russian. So even though I think she's living in Switzerland right now, this is. Wait, maybe she actually. Oh, this.
Maybe this is maybe this is the point that she wished to make, that she's like an ethnic Russian, but she lives in, I don't know, Russia probably. But the other one is like ethnic Russian, but she lives in Switzerland. So maybe this had something to do with.
I don't know. I just feel like this was a bit, to be honest, overreacting. That's my impression. And unfortunately, Yekaterina, she has withdrawn from the next Grand Prix because of this, as a protest. She was supposed to play. Let me check it. Which next Grand Prix, final Grand Prix stage in India. Lucknow already has said because of this, because of politically biased decisions, she's not gonna play. I don't know about you, Wojciech. You probably are gonna have a pretty similar opinion, but I think it's, to be honest, a bit too much emotions. And I surely hope that Lucknow still has time to change her mind, unless there's already a replacement. We can say a lot of things when we're very emotional. Again, we do not know the history. We don't know history between Lucknow and Kastanyuk, and it's none of our business really, right? It just feels that indeed, technically, she probably isn't right. Her game was a bit more spectacular. But then again, like you said yourself, it doesn't really feel like this was the best game she ever played. She did make several mistakes along the way, and at some point she was actually in trouble. Yeah, so I just hope they somehow resolve it, and that Lucknow is still going to find the time and the willingness to play in India and play more beautiful games.
Exactly. I'm totally on the same page here as you are. Nothing more to add, really.
All right. Okay, so I hope that they're really going to sort it out. I hope there's no bad blood. Yeah, it's just, again, our humble opinion. How do we feel about it? Like, these are nice games. Kastanyuk's game is like nice, but yeah. By the way, also Kastanyuk herself, she said that she would have awarded the prize to also to Lucknow's game. Yeah, so she also felt that the other game was more spectacular, but it's not her fault, right? She received the prize, and okay, thank you. Yeah, thank you for the prize, and she also fully supports Lucknow, and there are many emotions. Anyway, I hope you ladies, you're gonna figure it out, and we do not get very often some drama about beauty games. I believe the last time there was a drama about a beauty game, it involved a certain Gary Kasparov against Timur Rajabov like 20 years ago. So every 20 years we get something to talk about not awarding the proper game for the beauty award. But we have one more topic I would like to maybe touch a bit briefly, or it really depends how it goes. But it's like, and that is the story of Kirill Shevchenko. So, probably those of you who are following chess actively, there is this young talent from Ukraine. He right now represents Romania. Kirill Shevchenko, he is age 22, I think. He's rated 75 in the world, rating something 2670. Definitely young talent. He's the winner of year 2021 European Team Chess Championships. He also, by the way, won the Lindoris Abbey Blitz tournament in Riga ahead of everyone else. And he was like, 18 at the time? So it's very, very impressive result. Definitely a huge talent. He was caught supposedly red-handed, cheating. So not technically cheating. He was found by his phone hidden in a toilet last year. I believe it was September, October in Spain. And what makes this situation really awkward, that it's not just one phone that was found. There were two phones because somebody found the phone hidden in the toilet the previous day. And the next day, they found another phone hidden. I don't know, was it really exact the same cabin or not? But this time there was a note. Do not touch it. I'm going to pick it up later. It just felt so weird. If you feel like you have to leave, do not touch the phone. Why would you even try to hide it in the toilet? Anyway, we can discuss it. But the fallout is this: Shevchenko just got a 3-year ban from competitive chess, so it's actually 2+1. Starting with the moment when he made this supposed offense from 2023. So until 2020. I'm sorry, last year, 24, yeah. Until 2026, something like October, he's getting a 3-year ban, and he can get an early parole after 2 years if within this 1 year he doesn't make any repeated offense. He is free to play. Your first hot take on it, Wojciech.
Okay, so first of all, I think that it's one thing if an amateur cheats, and it's a completely different story if a super GM or even a title player does it, since GMs are supposed to be like role models in life, and if GMs start cheating, that's a sign of decay for sure, for the sport as a whole. On the other hand, as you said, young age, first offense, some additional background stories as far as they remember. And also he fully cooperated with the authorities, meaning that he admitted I think that there might have been something like some sort of a plea bargaining, involved. For those of you who do not know what plea bargaining is, it's like essentially like negotiations between like the prosecutor and like the accused party, right, within some disciplinary or even criminal proceedings. So the accused person says, okay, I admit, I'm going to cooperate, I'm going to disclose everything. And the prosecutor or like the disciplinary kind of body says, well, in return for that, we're gonna show you some leniency, right? We're gonna give you like less years or something. And 3 years, out of which one is suspended. That sounds pretty lenient to me, right? Since I've heard about cases when people would be like suspended for life, right? 5, 10 years, right? In my home country, if you have a watch on you, essentially, it doesn't have to be even a digital watch. It can be like a regular watch. As far as I'm concerned, you get automatically 2 years, right? So you don't have to be a cheater. You can just be unfamiliar with the laws, right? The watch. There's no way for the watch to help you play better chess anyhow, and you still get 2 years, right? No, but essentially, again, I think that the only thing that we can debate on is like whether the penalty is like harsh enough, since if he admitted to cheating, like in the sense that he was bringing
Wait,
those.
he did not admit to cheating. By the way, this is what I wanted to mention. He admitted hiding the phone. He denied cheating,
He admitted, as far as I can tell, he admitted hiding the phone
not cheating,
so that he can have access to leeches, right?
but not cheating.
Okay, so like the very next game that I'm gonna play, and this game might happen very soon from now, right? What I'm gonna do, I'm gonna take a phone with me to the toilet. I'm gonna, like launch Lee like I'm gonna have access to the website, and I'm gonna say openly to the arbiter, but it's not cheating.
Yeah, like you didn't switch on. I mean, maybe you just go to the bathroom and you won't have this bird's eye view on the games. You never know. You go to the bathroom, you're a bit lazy to walk around the board. You want to see what is happening in the other games, and maybe your favorite event is right now happening in the other country. You want to follow it so crazy, so you know it's bad, and you leave the sign on the phone, do not touch it. I just want to
Okay.
follow this other game on the broadcast, how they're doing. Maybe there's
No,
students that
no,
are
no.
playing
So
there, but you're not
let's
cheating.
be more specific, right? So he never admitted to cheating, right? He did admit to bringing the phone with him to the bathroom so that he has access to leeches. Well, okay, if somebody did it to me, like in the sense that if one of my opponents got caught red-handed in a situation like this, I wouldn't have had like any doubts, to be honest, right? It's like I don't know, like finding like a knife stained in blood, in somebody's apartment, and there's been a murder committed in the neighborhood. Okay, I think that objectively speaking, there was no, there was some testing done, and this professor who is like famous for like determining whether somebody cheated or not, he reached the conclusion that apparently there was no kind of significant deviation from the mean, in terms of, increased playing
Oh,
strength,
come on.
because
I could really argue about this because this is ridiculous because I have a very big problem when big experts they say there's no deviations. Again, big respect for the professor. I know him, like I know what he has done, and I think he's doing really fantastic work. But it would be really dumb for the cheaters to follow the top lines of the engine. Yeah, like you play the top lines of the engine, you produce a masterpiece 100%. This looks really stupid. So if a player is really good, all he needs is like a critical moment advice. Is this a good move or not? And that's it. And then you figure it out. It's like maybe you need somebody to budge you. Can I do the sack or not? And somebody gives you a nod. Yes, you can do it. The engine supports it. That's all you sometimes need. Like just recently, Magnus Carlsen said, I believe in Joe Rogan's interview, he said that if he wanted to cheat, nobody would even notice, right? And
yeah,
that's
true.
why
That's
that's what
quite
I'm
a
saying.
that's
There
quite a
would
famous
be
quote. That's
yeah,
quite a
there would be
famous
no
quote of
difference.
Magnus, and
There would be
nobody
no
nobody
difference.
denies. Nobody denies. Then again, even if he didn't admit to cheating per se. Now imagine everybody doing something like this. They say, I brought a phone with me to the toilet. Like, okay, got caught red-handed, right? But I didn't cheat, so well, I'm not supposed to be, I know, penalized, or maybe I'm not supposed to get such a high kind of conviction, in terms of years, right? No, I mean, well, it's a sad moment for chess, for sure, because like prior to the event, I held him in like very high esteem, right? I thought that, like the future was his. I saw him like as a 2800 rated player one day potentially. And, maybe this is still going to happen, but it's like very difficult to like to kind of get rid of this stain on one's honor, after a story like this. There are gonna be people who are like always gonna be looking at him and in a way that, oh yeah, like he had the phone on him, like during a tournament,
You
and
know, I think
you,
it's
yeah.
yeah, I
You,
think it's actually impossible. I mean, people remember.
but you do understand my point of view that like why do people bring phones, with them to the toilet in the playing hall? All the cases in chess history that I have known about. You had, I think it was Rouses, right? I'm not so sure about this, a while ago, like who got caught, like doing something on his phone in the toilet. There was like, pics or like pictures, of him doing that. We had cases of a certain Georgian player, as far as I remember, who would hide the phone under the trash bin in the toilet. I know whether it was Abu Dhabi, in some sort of a tournament in an Arabic state in the Middle East, right? So, like that is, like the guilt, at least for bringing the phone, with him, is undeniable in this case, and since he admitted it himself, it's just that it like makes me sad that situations like these are happening, right? It shouldn't be like this. This is certainly like an existential threat to the game itself. Like just look at you or me, for example. We've spent literally all our lives, like owning our skills, perfecting our craft, and well, all of a sudden, there's an important game and we lose it, and even the mere kind of thought that you're playing against somebody who got caught cheating like in the past, it already puts you in some sort of a discomfort, I guess, right? And I know people who like if they have like a mere suspicion of something like going in the wrong direction, they are already kind of they're incapable of like really focusing so much. Instead, they are like watching out, following the opponent because they freak out, right? And yeah, I mean, again, I wish him all the best because, from the very scarce kind of conversations that I had with him in my lifetime, he seemed like a genuinely nice kid. And I hope that he's gonna like find his way towards the light. It is possible. It is possible, just not to do it anymore. Maybe were some stories, background stories, which we do not know about. Maybe they got disclosed during the proceedings, but they were left, like for a purpose, hidden from the public for a certain reason. So
I'm also hoping, yeah, that he's gonna do well. And like you said yourself, I also have very couple of brief reaction meetings with him. Like we played the final game of the 2017 European Individual Chess Championship. I was pressing. He made a draw. He got his final GM norm, and he always left me a very good impression. He is very kind, and he's like a nice guy, and that's why to me this was a major surprise to be honest. And I do hope that he is gonna find a way to turn around it. But to be honest, I just do not see how do you overcome this thing. Like if I look back historically of all the cheaters who were caught red-handed, I don't think that anybody really came back and he was able to play at that level because you can basically forget any high-level invitations. I mean, that's the cost of your mistake, right? So that's a big mistake. You were young, you did it, but you're gonna have to live with it for the rest of your life. And that's why if somebody is thinking about it to do this and you think you're not going to get caught, you will get caught. Eventually, you will get caught. And then it's going to take with you for the entirety of your life.
yeah, and that's the sad part. Again, I wish him all the best. I hope that, like things are gonna improve on his side since he clearly knows how to play chess, right? Maybe this was, like you never know since as far as I know he's like Ukrainian and with all the things going on, in his home country, you never know like what could have influenced him, maybe he was like traumatized by some sort of event, I don't know, like that's just pure speculation, and if something bad is happening, let's say in your life, sometimes we are just humans, we start getting like different bad ideas, which do not seem bad, initially just because we are in a state of like shock or just confused basically, right? So I hope that this was such a case. I wish him very well, like those years they're gonna pass. They're gonna pass. 2026 is just around the corner. Maybe he's gonna be able to make a comeback. I hope he is able to do that, and maybe we're gonna still hear about him, in a positive
And
way.
and
And
this also
I
leads
hope,
to the yeah,
yeah,
this leads also to the next thing. I think competitive chess have seriously to improve the anti measures. So what do you do to make sure there's no cheating, right? And most of the tournaments they actually have no security checks, right? So you can easily get in. There's no delay even. I'm so surprised. Like there's some very high level tournaments. There's not the minimal requirement of to avoid the cheating that is the broadcast delay, and that's why the viewers, in case you're wondering why some tournaments have the delay, it's for exactly the same reason that the moves are broadcasted like 15. Actually, I think it should be at least 30 minutes to make sure there's no um, transmission so that somebody can go to the toilet. But of course, it still doesn't rule out. You can set up the position on the physical phone and you can still switch on the engine and check it out. But I think that the tournament organizers could do so much more and FIDE could do so much more as the governing body and pay a bit more attention to this problem, which I think is actually only the tip of the iceberg.
yeah. I mean, metal detectors are like the absolute basics, I guess, but also a certain level of proactivity, on the side of the arbiters. At least in my home country, when after a while when there was this cheating scandal from a couple of years back, like the Polish Chess Federation reacted promptly by doing like coaching sessions for arbiters, on how to handle similar situations in the future. So that was a step in the right direction, for sure. On the other hand, from like the perspective of making sure that such incidents they do not repeat too often, it's not so much, in my opinion, about like the harshness of the punishment. It's rather about its inevitability. So you just need to like there need to be such stringent, like security measures in place that you kind of know that you're risking a lot if you go into the playing hall with a phone on you, essentially, right? So, and if you take into consideration the like level of ostracism that can happen to you in the chess world if you get if you get caught red-handed, that should be like a sufficient deterrent, for just about anybody. Like we're like just fragile human beings, and it can happen to just about anybody. Like we all commit mistakes. Yeah. On the other hand, well, like a measure of also our humanity is how do we also treat people who get caught red-handed? Are we gonna, kind of gonna let's try to live with it? If they get the punishment, if they kind of do the years, right? Let's try to like give them like the credit of doubt again, like a clean slate, and obviously everybody's going to be watching them, very very carefully, but maybe this is going to end well. At least I hope this is going to end well in the case of Kirill, right? I do wish him all the best.
All right, I'm also wishing him all the best, and I think the the sentence was maybe not more and not less, definitely. All right, we have one more thing, so let's wrap it up in a bit more positive note. So we talk about quite a few dramas today, and let's talk chess. The chess, and
Awesome.
Wojciech, yeah, you were torturing me for the first 3 episodes. You were showing me positions from your course. Wojciech, by the way, in case somebody's wondering, he about a month ago released Moranda's method on Chessable, his very first Chessable course. My own course, by the way, the Scandinavian defense with Queen A5 is coming. I'm recording the videos basically as of I speak, right? I'm recording in these weeks. I just started it last week. But there's one position I would like to show you, Wojciech, and
Awesome.
test your tactical vision.
Oh my
Right?
God, I haven't done my tactics,
You're
today
gonna have to do
yet.
it right now.
You caught me at my lowest point.
Okay. It's time to get to the highest point. And okay, here we go. How do I show you this position? Actually, send you. Just a second. I forgot to send you the position.
Okay, it's here. Now I get
No, no,
it.
no.
Hmm.
Wait. You're seeing it. Yeah, you're seeing it. Okay.
Well, I saw
Here
it.
we go.
Yeah, like rook on
You
c5,
saw it,
queen
yeah?
d5,
Okay.
etc. Yeah.
Okay. All right. This is from my game. I played last weekend in France. A couple of exciting games. By the way, I haven't yet made videos about it. So maybe after this podcast, April 1st, uh, I will record them. I just had so many things to do. And this was the critical moment of the game. Like to play, win.
Okay,
It's very instructive.
well, material is equal, but obviously in tactical positions with tactical potential like this, we are not paying too much attention. We're not supposed to pay too much attention to material. Two ideas stand out as being very interesting. One of them, rook c2 intending mate on g2. The other one being queen d4, trying to do some sort of a discovered attack, double attack against the queen on a7 and the queen and the king of white on g1. So okay, if we play rook c2, are there any tricks, except for rook f2 which he can use, against us? He's gonna play rook f2 for sure, right? And then the question is whether, rook c1, forcing the rook to f1 is any improvement at all, or maybe instead whether it's a good idea for black to start checking like queen d1, etc. So that's like a random set of ideas first. When it goes for queen d4, what we can immediately say for sure is that he cannot do interference with rook f2 on account of rook c1 check and the queen is falling. He cannot do king g2 either, so he's going to have to go with his king to the floor, or he's going to have to avoid the second rank as the plague. And then you could do like the staircase motif, like queen d4, queen e4, etc., and like see what happens. Maybe if you're lucky, you're going to be able to do some arrangement of the queen, which is going to leave him like potentially defenseless or maybe exposed to additional kind of I don't know, additional kind of motifs, right? Also, if we come back to the beginning of the starting position of the puzzle, one thing that may or may not mean something is like that the fact that there is like a trade of pawns possible on b4, right? So it may be nothing. It may even be improving white's chances of survival if we insert a takes b4 first, because in many positions queen a1 is going to be an important defensive resource. So it's just like a random idea that I'm mentioning that maybe, just maybe, this will make some sense, to be also examined. Probably not. Probably not. It doesn't seem like anything important. So my gut feeling tells me that queen b4 looks a little bit more promising, and there are two approaches, obviously. Like one approach is to start off by analyzing the one that we believe in the most, or maybe the other one that we can reject, as quickly as possible, right? So
Yeah, so whichever you choose.
whichever I choose also. So if I play rook c2, rook f2 seems more or less to be a must, right? And then after rook c2, rook f2, I've got like two candidate moves, that at least the ones that I'm aware of. Queen d1, rook c1. Yeah, so if I play Queen d1. Okay, well, the king may start running towards g2. Well, it's getting a little bit kind of murky out there. The king can start running towards h3. Everything is defended on white side. It's not particularly, not nothing appealing yet. If I play rook c2, rook f2, rook c1 check instead of queen d1, then you have no other choice but to play rook f1. But do I have any checks after rook f1 available? Any more checks? Any intermediate tricks? Any nothing? I could take on I could take on f1 and go queen f3 check, or maybe queen h1 check and search for some, like pawn captures, decimating those pawns. But you have got queen g1, and I guess that you're not giving me this exercise because you want me to transpose into a winning pawn endgame, right? No
Which is
matter,
not.
which is not the case. So we can just, throw it all the way. We can come back to the starting position. And I guess that it's rather the queen e4 that I need to focus on the more. But it's very important to also check those odds and ends, since you never know. You never have a guarantee, during your own game, since this is a puzzle. So I'm biased into thinking that there has to be something simply available out here. So queen d4 check. Okay, king h1 is a must, right? And the question is, what are my candidates, right? So I'm obviously searching for some discoveries, not yet, no rook moves yet. I have two candidates out here. Candidate number one is queen e4, very natural, and candidate number two is queen d3, right? Because if I play queen d3, if you decide to hit, no, that makes no sense because you have this intermediate check on f7 like always, and then you
Ah,
capture on
yeah, rook
c5.
f7, actually. You're right. Yeah, rook
Yeah,
f7
because this
immediate.
still leaves, some doubt out here. This might turn out to be a winning pawn endgame for black. So instead, we have queen d4, king h1, queen e4 checked, right? Okay, let's come back to this moment because I have like a little delay, when I'm
Yeah,
watching
sure.
Twitch live. And okay, like the question is, what is this? Mm, yeah, you can continue by playing queen e1, but you're still gonna be going towards the corner, or queen e3, sorry, check. Or I can play rook c2 and try to make this motif work, right, with the queen standing on e4 instead of d5. So in theory, the queen is closer to the white king compared to from e4 compared to d5. So this might be some sort of an improvement, right? But okay, the more I look at this, the good part of the story is that the queen on a7 is out of play, so I can imagine some funny games happening out here. So I just dominate, let's say, and I play like a quiet move somewhere along the lines. And so it's probably this that you have hidden somewhere
No.
out here. So
No.
no, it's not
No,
so deep.
no.
You're saying no,
No,
because
no, no,
sometimes,
no.
yeah,
It is definitely directly linked with the queen on a7. So the major motive is the queen on a7 being disconnected.
disconnected. Okay, so essentially I can imagine, like some sort of a devilish quiet move happening on the board in a second. now, right? That is my rough guess, for starters.
You want to
Yeah,
go
well,
back?
okay, like by one move maybe. Okay, Queen e4, King g1. I think that we can stop here. Uh,
I'm gonna help you a bit. You obviously know all of this. I'll just remind you. It's very difficult to spot things when there's something that's taking away your attention. It's like when you're seeing things, like you see something very exciting, you want to carry it out, it's very difficult to remain objective and look at the larger picture. And that's why when, for example, you notice there's a potential discovered check by the rook on c5, you want to make it happen. So it's like a psychological thing. And you spend a lot of time trying to make it work. And then eventually you're going to realize it doesn't work. You cannot trap the queen. But if it was not the case, if you were not like looking for this discovered check with the rook, maybe you would be looking at something else. Yeah, I think it's very common. If there's a major distraction somewhere, you're like not looking at other possibilities.
I mean, this is what I've been doing. I've been trying to bring the queen closer, right? And then eventually play something like rook c2. But I'm not feeling that I'm getting anywhere near, the solution so far. I'm still
We have to go
flirting.
to the starting position.
Okay, so let's go back then. Yeah, this is the fourth stage of the game. One of
I
my
did not find it. I
my
did
my
not
man, my
find
many
it.
weaknesses. Yeah.
No, it's also my weakness because I did not find it. I had like 25 minutes. No, 40 minutes. No, sorry, 30 minutes on the clock. It was the second time control just started. And I felt there's something here. I definitely felt it. Like, I think it's usually the gut instinct. Yeah, on your experience, you see the queen a7 is disconnected. You see the ideas. You cannot explain it, but you feel it's there.
Yeah, but how else should I be able to make use of this queen of white being standing on a7, right? Like one idea, it's an undefended piece, so we're thinking immediately discoveries, right? Another kind of idea that would come to mind would be trying to do some corridor tricks. Yeah, let's say the rook goes, I don't know, to the a file and the queen is trapped somehow. But there is no way for me to. There doesn't seem to be a way for me to arrange this. Yeah, I mean, I briefly saw the comment, and somebody said has to be c5 somewhere. Sure, I'm thinking about this, but f7 is hanging in many
I
lines, so I
also
need
thought
to keep.
about it. Yeah, it has to be c5 somewhere. Yeah, but
Yeah, I
how?
need to I need to keep the queen on d5. That's another kind of a story, right? So okay, let's do it like this. I'm gonna play rook c2,
Okay.
and then after rook f2, I'm gonna play something that resembles like c5, right? Because what I want to see happening is that after rook takes c2, queen d1 happens, queen takes c2, and maybe I'm gonna be able to check my way into winning the pawn on b4 with a queen of mine being centralized on e4, therefore not giving white too many checks and potentially transposing into winning queen endgame. But this would go against the thing that you said in the beginning, that well, it's not about transposition into some sort of an endgame. Yeah.
I said that.
Yes, you did, and this is why I rejected this, pawn. Yeah.
But ultimately, it's the question. No, I said about maybe the idea here of taking the pawn on b4. Like, this is what happened in the game. Takes, check, here, check, here, take the pawn on b4, queen a1, queen c3. An engine is merciless here. Engine says this is just an easy draw,
This is
which
what
I
I
think
said.
us
Yeah.
humans we are gonna disagree. It's not an easy draw. It's a pawn. This is something you can press forever. No engine says this is a draw.
It's a draw, although this white queen needs to break a sweat for sure out here, right? Because okay, well, all the disconnected pawns of black on the king side make it a little bit easier. However, once this pawn of black starts moving, you put the rook behind, you activate the king, you do not mind losing the h2 pawn in return for the c7 pawn. That's gonna be a draw at the end of the day, right? But not an easy one for sure. Like you just need to keep being vigilant out here. But c5 was something that came to my mind, but obviously I had to like check the discoveries and check mating ideas first. And then you said also that it's not about the transposition into an endgame. So I immediately dropped all of
Ah,
those ideas pertaining
I'm so
uh,
sorry.
to
Yeah,
before.
I
No
didn't
worries,
think
no
about.
worries. It's
Yeah,
it's
this
not
is
an
the correct.
excuse. It's not an excuse. I should have insisted that there is a transposition available, and I did mention it, by the way, along the way, that I wanted to transpose by winning the pawn on b4. But okay, that's fair enough.
Yeah, this
Fair
is
enough.
this is the winning position ultimately. You give the checks as you said yourself, centralize the queen, and there's no perpetual checks. And because the pass b pawn, you are going to be able to win it. And also the point is, if white decides to take the pawn on c5, I suppose you somehow win because of the spin. I didn't really check it. So now that the queen is disconnected, it cannot protect f2 square. Obviously, queen d4 is impossible because of queen f7. I think it's something like this. Now make a ladder, here. Actually, it's a very good question. Where is it? Ah, I think I found it.
Easy. We need
Here,
to. We need
here,
to go at the
multiple
end. Yeah.
checks, multiple
Yeah. Game
checks,
over. Mm-hmm.
multiple checks, and
No, no, no.
I think
Queen.
it's
Okay. Okay. Anyways, yeah, yeah, yeah. You're right.
yeah. Maybe there's something. Queen e2 check is rook f2. Yeah,
Yeah,
really
yeah.
sure.
But I had an idea that I wanted to lure you differently. But okay, it's a different story. Yeah.
Yeah. So ultimately, this seems to be winning, and now king h4 is going to be made on h2. King h3 is queen h5, and here at least I would say my minimal program, if I find nothing, is collect the rook. You know, there's the
Exactly.
famous saying: if you can checkmate in 5 moves or take the rook, take the rook. There might be no checkmate in.
Yeah, this is what I said in the context of the Lano game. Yeah, if I can, like carry out some sort of a beautiful but risky attack, or maybe I can take the pawn and win in an endgame, well, I'm gonna do the latter, like 10 out of 10. Yeah.
Right. All right. Yeah, you sold it. You sold it.
No, no, I wasn't even close.
No, no, but you said it's something like rook c2 and c5. You know, the funny thing is, during the game, I saw c5 ID. I thought like maybe some rook c2, c5. I just didn't connect the dots. Like, I just didn't connect the dots that I can go to the queen endgame because somehow I was feeling I don't want to go to the queen endgame. And then I didn't find any tricks and I decided to go to the rook endgame ultimately, which by the way my opponent rejected and I still won the game. So I still won
Congratulations.
the game. So, but I missed it. Can I apply for a beauty award?
No. I mean, you can apply, and
Uh,
if you want, you can even reject offers to keep on playing the same event, unless you're being given the prize. But would that be justified? In my eyes, not necessarily.
okay, yeah, let's wrap it up. Obviously, I didn't get any beauty award. Sorry. This pun was really terrible. I know. I'm so sorry. It was an exciting fourth episode. In case you missed it, the viewers, we talked about two major topics. We talked about the beauty prize controversy that happened in the Women's Grand Prix just recently in Monaco. We talked about Kirill Shevchenko ban sentence, which is 3 years, actually 2+1. So he comes back to competitive chess at the end of next year. We also gave our opinion about Hans Niemann not taking the polygraph. Then we talked about Matthias Bluebaum winning his second European Championship title, and also very briefly mentioned Andy Woodward's impressive 15-0 score in his blitz match against Daniel Naroditsky, which normally we would not be even talking about, but some people start to quote this match, so we had to.